So, in your local environment, could you talk about the changes that you may have noticed over the past several years? For example, this could be changing weather, temperature, seasons, plants and animals, anything like that.
Yeah. So the thing I've noticed the most is the inconsistency in the seasons. I grew up mostly in Wisconsin and I remember pretty consistent winters. And in the last, I would say 10 years, 5 to 10 years that I've been living in Madison, I've been in Madison for 20 years. I've noticed that the winters are less snowy, they're warmer, and there's less consistent snowfall. Yeah, less consistent snowfall.
Could you talk about the changes you may have noticed in your local environment over the past several years? For example, changing weather, temperature, seasons, changes in plants and animals, sea level, water resources, etc.
Probably the big one is that right now it is the beginning of November in Boston, which is normally like the start of winter because it's like the end of fall. And it is a heat wave this weekend. As you can see, I'm not wearing a coat or anything because it's literally 70 degrees outside today. And that's like not the normal climate for this region at all. It's usually already like in the 40s most of the time. So it's super weird. This whole fall has been unbelievably warm, and it's just going to keep going for another couple weeks.
Okay, thank you. Could you talk about the changes you may have noticed in your local environment over the past several years? For example, change in weather, temperature, seasons, change in plants and animals.
Okay, currently Nigeria is experiencing rise in sea levels. Yes, we have floods like floods in Bayelsa State, we have floods in Benue, we have floods in some part of River State and some other northern part of the country right now.
Okay.
Any damage that you had to your house specifically?
Yes, thanks for asking. Our house is gone. We lost the roof first. It was 140-mile-an-hour winds, and winds at that temperature rearrange your landscape, your natural landscape, which is, as you'd think in Florida, sand-based. Mm-hmm. And so the things that grow there are palm trees and oak trees and things that have really great root systems. But we lost it all. And once your vegetation is gone, mm-hmm. there's nothing protecting your home. They don't have basements, thank God. So everything is above land level. Mm-hmm. We lost a roof first, and then the rain saturated everything inside so that then the roof imploded, fell in. Mm-hmm. And so we're down to foundation and studs, but no one was hurt. Thank goodness. 100 people died. So we're considering ourselves to be pretty darn lucky. Mm-hmm. Just things.
Yes.
The changes are tremendous. Hence, before now, we have an habitable environment. We have a serene environment. But coupled with the population growth, coupled with the need for crop yields, majority of our residents here have chosen to expand their coast by building more houses, and with that we have suffered some devastation, which the occurrence is what you can see behind me here. Formerly it was all habitable and welcoming and a serene environment where people come in and find pleasure in, but today it has become an havoc, a dunghill for hoodlums, for reptiles that are unfriendly, and for other activities that has caused human lives and property.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. Now, how do you imagine the future of your family and your community?
Thank you so much. Though I'm smiling today because I'm still alive, but I want to let us know that many souls have gone in because of this. Many that were settling here have relocated because of the discomfort, and many houses have collapsed. So the future that we are seeing here is not something to write home about. We are all living in fear. Many are scared. Many have become hypertensive in nature because their ancestral land has been reclaimed. Many graves that were here have been buried and washed away by erosion and made.
For a little bit of backstory, the fire took place in some neighborhoods or in some towns in Boulder County, which is Boulder and surrounding areas. And the fire destroyed more than 1,000 homes, and more than tens of thousands of residents had to evacuate. The fire does not have people are still not sure what caused the fire as of yet, at least from the information that I've found. They believe that it could have been either downed power lines, underground coal fires, or human activity, all of which, especially the downed power lines and the underground coal fires, really speak to how humans could have caused that through their energy usage in Colorado. This fire was completely out of control. Colorado had a extremely dry dry winter that led up to the fire. I believe that we had barely any snow. I think that it was less than 2 inches, which is pretty uncommon, and no rain, which is not super uncommon for Colorado. It's a very dry place, but having very little snow is somewhat noteworthy, and definitely speaks to global warming, I believe, because typically at that time of year, the fire took place on December 30th. So, at that point, we should have had much more snow than that, which really helped the fire grow and spread, because the grasses and plains were so dry. The fire was able to just get some speed and keep going. There was also 100-mile-an-hour winds, which made the fire, speed through towns. It jumped highways and completely destroyed many neighborhoods that I knew people that lived in.
Good evening, guys. My name is Gary Clocky. I am from Nigeria, Rivers State, Nigeria, but right now I am in the University of Calabar. I am very sad with the growing events of climate change, because when I was young, we had this stream very close to my house, and we go there, we dive into the streams to enjoy it. You can dive, swim front, swim back. That same time, there was forest around my house, very thick forest, untouched, natural. So sometimes animals literally come out of the forest to pick food in our compound. They will see us, they run away. Years gone by, we went back to the community for holidays. Firstly, I went to that stream. That stream is almost gone. Even children inside that stream cannot dive into the stream, not to talk of an adult. Then those forests that used to be around my houses have been porous, have been invaded, have been deforested. You cannot find any animal coming to the compound again. Most times we chase butterflies into the bushes, very beautiful big butterflies, they fly, but now we can't see them anymore. So this saddens my heart so much. If I have the opportunity as a political leader or a global leader, I will advocate and educate younger ones on how to restore the environment, on how to sustain it so that it doesn't go out completely. This is my plan. Thank you very much.
Good day, everyone. My name is Rappa Greatin Uzuku, final year student of the Department of Geography and Environmental Science. Now, my climate change story started, like I said yesterday, from when I was a child. I saw a man fall a tree or fell a tree in my childhood home, and I saw the void that tree left. The ecosystem, everything that depended on that tree suffered when that tree was no longer there. And the man fell it for his selfish reasons, claimed that, I don't know, that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is the fact that around the world, thousands of trees are being felled every day, and these trees are living dens in our ecosystem. Now, my own contribution would be to protect, one, the wildlife that depends on these trees worldwide. Two, the trees, because we don't know this, but the trees are the lungs of the earth, and the moment we learn to protect our trees, our world will be a better place, and this climate change war will turn the tide towards us. Thank you very much.
I guess I think everybody's kind of been noticing this. The weather's been kind of crazy.
Yes.
Goes from very, very cold to really, really hot. Especially now, I mean, we've had a couple days that have just been in the 70s in, October, November, which I think is very strange. Especially at home too. I live in a more kind of quieter residential area, and I've noticed like less animals than before. We used to have a lot of like rabbits and squirrels and stuff, and there's been a decrease over the past couple years. And I've noticed a lot of our plant life too has been not looking as lively as per usual.
Yeah, no, I've definitely noticed that as well. As you know,
as a student coming to school, some days I realize that it's so hot that I feel lazy to come out of my house sometimes. If not because it's really important to like come for lectures, I would actually prefer staying at home because it's so hot that it's so uncomfortable. Even when you try to manage to come to school, it's so uncomfortable and it's just so stressful. The climate change is really a very negative impact on us humans, not just us humans, the environment at large. Like the amount of diseases like lungs and everything is just very horrible right now. So I'm
So in a way, climate change has impacted my community greatly, and I would like to link that to agro-food production. My father owns a farmland where he plants plantains and yams, and then due to changes in weather patterns, the crop yield and harvest are being altered. So sometime last year, we had a serious case of a really heavy rainfall which swept away the crop. So harvest for the year was lost throughout that year. And this has been on and on, not just for him, but for so many other farmers. And I would like to express that this is really saddening, as we're all heading for food shortage where we come from due to these changes in weather patterns as a result of the climate change.
So please introduce us and just describe your environment.
So in my environment, I've seen a really big fluctuation in temperature in the winter and in the summer. So personally, where I work, it's Woodstock, and depending on the day is when one side of the street gets to water their yard and the other side gets to water their yard. So there's a really big concern around drought in the community, especially since it's a farming community.
So you're saying that impacting our crops and our food?
Yeah, climate change definitely impacts the crops and how you need to treat the soil around you and how much work you're putting into the food that's produced and given to the public.
Yeah, that's a great point there.
Please, how do you feel about climate change? Describe your emotional responses to climate change, how it might affect yourself, your family, and your community.
Climate change crisis actually stirs fear and crippling sadness in my heart. The death that actually follows due to climate change crisis, injury, and whatever incidents that might follow actually cripples me at heart.
Right, so my emotion towards climate change is rather sad, and I'm feeling angry because before now the water flows up to this shore, but as you can see, the water is now shifting back towards the river, which is really sad due to the extensive heat caused by climate change.
It's very worrying because I think about how future generations will survive in a world that's very unstable. How will they feed themselves if all of the agricultural lands are dried up or burning? How do I explain to my kids that our home used to have very pleasant weather, but by that time it'll be very unpleasantly hot most of the time? My view on stopping climate change is pretty fatalistic because people are not going to change their ways and it's already kind of too late.
Hello, everyone. This is Nsika Peter Odofot from the Department of Environmental Resources Management in the University of Calabar. And this is my climate change story. Personally, I started to experience the impact of climate change in recent years when I started to feel heat. There was an increase in temperatures, and it got very difficult for me at night. I couldn't sleep. and I started to ask some questions. Also, I observed that there were seasonal changes in the environment, concerning rainfall, the rainy season and the dry season, because as it stands now, it's almost very difficult to determine when the rainy season starts and stops and when the dry season starts and stops. And it's a problem because this was not how it used to be before. So I am scared and I am also sad about what climate change has done to the environment. For one, Africa, which is my continent as a whole, is the least prepared, the least contributor to climate change, and is the most vulnerable. So I feel like something should be done about that. So I have my own contributions would be that environmental education should be taught in schools, especially from the primary up to the secondary and then the university, so that children would be aware of the environment and how to take care of it. I personally have joined a club voluntarily to do good to the environment. Thank you. So again, my name is Nsika Peter Odofot, and this is my climate change story.
I've noticed the winters get less intense, definitely more mild. The summers are also definitely hotter. It's noticeable. It's also an eerie sign of things just changing and being different to what we've grown used to. Not to mince any words here, it's pretty deeply depressing. I mean, even living somewhere where we have relatively mild impacts from climate change, it's hard to ignore. Makes you wonder things like, is this a world worth bringing kids into? I mean, I have nieces and nephews. 20-year difference from me, I just can't imagine how much more extreme it is for them. I don't think we talk enough about how irreversibly our mindsets and the younger generation's mindsets have been changed to just be more cynical, more negative, and more harshly thrust into reality of a world that's changing, probably for the worse. We see the rising issues with mental health in younger generations, and it's hard to imagine that this isn't a big cause of that. I definitely think there's a more optimistic possibility there. I definitely think we have the capability to do better. I definitely think that there is a rising sense of, there's a rising understanding of the collective cooperation that needs to happen for us to continue to be living in a comfortable world that we're familiar with. There's a lot of good being done and a lot of ingenuity and innovation going on in the fight against climate change. And, we hear all the negative headlines all the time, but there's also a lot of people out there who are doing a hell of a lot to try and desperately cling to whatever good future we might still be able to have. What that might look like, I don't know. I would like to think it looks like a world that works together more than it consumes and takes from each other. I would like to think that it looks like a world that works cooperatively, both between people and between the environment and people and between animals and people, and between energy and people. And I don't know. I think that there's plenty of people out there who already have a good symbiotic relationship with the earth. And so I don't think it's impossible at all.